Joining the Compas now, you know her, you love her. Chargers reporter Hayley Elwood. She is a part of the team, but this week she's a part of a different team. Hayley, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me on. This is actually really fun. This is my first day at Radio Row, and thanks for having me on too when I'm not like hawking anything. I have no sponsorships, but so don't worry, you don't need to ask me about Carnival cruises or anything like that. We're good.
So this beautiful Carnival cruise you can jump on for a little price.
Yeah.
But Hayley, we have a lot to talk about. You're big time. Obviously, you work with the Chargers, but now you're hosting the Super Bowl. That's kind of a big deal, right? How's that going for you so far, preparing for that?
It's really fun. Yeah, this is my fourth Super Bowl. It's definitely an experience that I do not take for granted by any means, and I'm very thankful to the Chargers too, who have allowed me to do this and kind of expand my role over the last few years. But it's a lot of fun. So basically, yeah, I'm the in-stadium host. I work with Scott Hansen, Kimmy Checks from NFL Network. She joins our pregame show as well, and it'll just be a lot of fun. It's a totally different experience because obviously in host and all of that, but done it the last few years. I did it with the Lakers, the 2015 season, and it's just kind of fun to get back to it. And there's no bigger stage, and so to be part of the game in this type of week too is just really, really special.
I gotta ask, because you were actually one of the only people with your feet on the ground last year's Super Bowl. What was that like?
It's so weird. So I'll say this: I know that there was a lot of talk in advance about, obviously Bucks playing in the Super Bowl at their home stadium, and there was all the talk about the pirate ship and the cannons and will they go off. That's where I was. I was on the ship that whole show, that whole game. And so as soon as that game got out of hand, like relatively quickly, and when we knew that the Bucks were obviously going to win and I had my final hit, it was like, get the heck off that ship because they were going to fire the cannons like ASAP as soon as it was done. But it was a really interesting experience because I was on lockdown that whole week in my hotel room, besides like going out to rehearsals and having to get COVID tested. But honestly, it was fine. I was, again, just really thankful to be part of it. But it was a weird experience, especially, we didn't have fans at Chargers in California. So to do a game that had, I forget what it was, 20,000 or something, with then the rest being cardboard cutouts. As normal could feel in that space, but it was a lot of fun, but definitely a surreal experience. But we're back this year.
And Hayley, I think your first one was in Atlanta. Is that correct?
It was,
Rams,
yeah.
Patriots, and I know you do this for a living. You're great on camera, but when you got that first one, was it a little nerve-wracking or not really professional?
It is though. I mean, I get nervous all the time, and I actually I listen to one of the things that I like to do is whenever there are women I look up to in the industry, whether it's someone like Laura Oakman, Erin Andrews, Sam Ponder, if they're ever on a podcast, I always like to listen to them and especially hear them talk about their jobs. And Erin Andrews talks about how she still gets nervous. And I'm like, okay, if she still gets nervous, like we're good, and it really is getting through that first hit. And once that first hit goes, you're like, okay, I'm on a roll. I can do this. But yeah, no doubt. I'm always nervous about it. I think I just kind of hide it well.
What's funny is that getting to work a couple of years on TV at NBC San Diego. I remember MJ would always right before go,
yeah.
And then I'd be like, oh my god, like, and I'd be like, what are you doing? Can I take a deep breath? And then I go, and I'm like, oh my god, she'd like take a deep breath right before they come on, and boom, oh my god, and I'd be like, oh my god, like, okay, you're like, you got emotions. That's pretty cool that people admit that they still get nervous sometimes.
I think too, for me, I grew up dancing and I grew up doing dance competitions and stuff like that. And so, like when you have to walk out on a stage and they're getting ready to call your number and it's like, number 457, it's kind of that same mindset of, okay, yeah, we're going to breathe, we're going to walk out, we're going to do this and we're going to go. And that's it. So I think that kind of helps the training too, in a sense.
There's a little bit of a commotion because Sean Payton just walked by and everyone's trying to go up and ask some questions and stuff. So if you hear a lot of noise, that's why. But Hayley, can you talk about making the jump from being a dancer? Because I mean, you danced and then switched over to media. What was that transition like?
It was good. I mean, I think that it's actually really funny. I've talked with Michelle Eisner, who was a former Bronx cheerleader and ended up making that same jump and transition. And MJ is another one to dance for the Miami Dolphins. There's a, to me, it's almost weird. It's like there's a natural tie in a sense of being a performer. And obviously when you're a reporter or a host, you want to be yourself at the same time. But there is an element of performance to it. There is an element of being able to compartmentalize like what you have to do in that moment and kind of go out and attack it. And so I think for me, I also grew up with parents who worked in TV news, and so that was kind of always in the back of my head. And this kind of role almost ties all of those things together in a sense, like being able to love journalism and sports, but also sort of the art of performing as well.
So hey, we're doing kind of a little bit of get to know you. You know, you're dancer, obviously with the Chargers, host of the Super Bowl, big deal by the way again. But Hayley, we have something in common. Fernando might hate this. People might hate it. Hopefully, I'm not putting you on the spot by saying this, but we don't like avocados.
We do not.
And I'm glad you're here, so you're with me together because people really hate that I don't like avocados. I don't know why.
Well, and that's the thing. It's funny too to me because like I'm from San Diego, obviously originally, and it's almost like a cardinal sin if you don't like avocados. It's a texture thing. I don't like the texture. I'm very weird about stuff like that. But I know we've talked about this too, but I'll bring it up. Over the summer, I shot something with Rashawn Slater, and we tried boba, and I had never had boba for the first time because, again, texture thing. I'm into tea. I drink tea all the time. And there were people in the YouTube comments who were like, I can't believe she's never had boba. Like, no way. And I'm like, oh, wait until you hear my takes on foods that I don't like.
No. That's cool. But this guy right here, this guy tried to bury me. He thought that people would get on me because I don't drink alcohol. So he thought, people are going to bury him, this and that. So he says, I don't like avocados. People buried him in the back of the head with shovels. And he literally tried to do that to me. And he was the one that ended up taking the L.
Yeah, it is not typically. But look, we never have to pay extra.
I was gonna say that our wallets are much healthier now because we're not paying $2.50 at Chipotle. So thanks for making a good point.
Exactly.
But Hayley, we also want to talk to you about real quick your day job, Chargers. I don't know. Our good friend here, Dan Diego, Fernando's brother, he's a big Chargers fan, so he's gonna enjoy this question. But being a month removed from this Chargers season, how would you kind of summarize it? A good year for Justin Herbert. I still think a successful first year for Brandon Staley. How would you summarize that year one with Staley?
I would agree, and I think it's really hard, obviously, to make the playoffs in the NFL, and to have it all kind of come down to that final game, which was insane. And I laugh because as great as that game was, then the Bills-Chiefs game happened in the divisional round. And I was like, oh, well, guess that Week 18 one kind of like people forget about that now. But I do think it was a success. You had a winning season, which they hadn't had in a minute. Justin Herbert did not have a sophomore slump. He's the real deal. The AFC is just stacked at quarterback, which is insane. And I think for Staley, too, it's a lot to come in. It was a brand new scheme. And one of the things that I've actually done over the last couple of weeks is talk with some of the Chargers position coaches and have an editorial series that'll come out over these next 3 weeks with that. I've put out 2 with Shane Day and Chris Beatty, who's the wide receivers coach. Shane Day, obviously the quarterbacks coach, and just kind of getting to talk to them about it. And you honestly forget how new everything was. There was nothing familiar for anyone on this team. And I say that because I was talking to Chris Beatty and I was asking him about Keenan, the longest tenured original Charger, and asked him, how do you challenge someone like him? And he said he was actually really thrilled with how receptive Keenan was to everything because of how new it was. And I think to have the success that they had, to have a winning season, to put that together, look, you fall short, you didn't make the playoffs, and there's obviously lessons that you learn from. But I think it was the season that gives a lot of optimism and hope moving forward. And I think that's what this team has kind of been inching towards. And I think, really big things are on the horizon.
It's funny. That's what I told Gilbert is that after that Chiefs game, and I've been around Keenan since 13.
Yeah.
So when he decided to go, there's he went positive, where he literally could have been like Gilbert trying to bury me. And he was like, no, he was very positive about it and everything. And I was like, okay, he sees it.
Yeah.
And that's why I asked him a couple of days later, you see something, don't you? And he's like, yeah, no, I see that. we're almost there. We just need a little bit more. Obviously, the end of the season, I mean, it was just incredible that the whole season they had 1, 2 COVID positive people. Before that Houston game, they had almost half of their team basically on there, and obviously after that they changed the rules and everything. But it seems like he's very optimistic. Joey Bosa is another one who, and Tom Telesco mentioned that at the end of the season. Those are the guys that he worries about because not worries, but there's the longest tenured guys, and they're the ones that are going to speak their mind, and both of them have been very positive.
Yeah.
So I feel like if you have both of those guys, positively about the future, I feel like that's a good sign for these guys.
Because it's about buy-in, right? Like, you need to be able to buy in anytime. Look, what did we have? 9 new head coach openings this year that are going into 2022. So it's all about buy-in. And I think the other thing too with this team, and this was something Shane Day talked about, is just the consistency to be able to now, especially for someone like Justin Herbert, who I think he had 3 different head coaches during his 4 years at Oregon. There was so much inconsistency there, and now he gets to stay in the same system.
3 head coaches, 4 offensive coordinators.
So there you go. Yeah.
Sorry.
You're good. We got the math down. But he gets to stay in the same system and grow in that system. And he did great things, obviously, this year in it. So all of that, I think, is just positivity moving forward.
Haley, on the other side on defense, obviously, Derwin James came back, had a great year. So it was another great year, but it was, a letdown on defensively. A lot of young guys, maybe took a step forward, but not enough steps to stay competitive. And a lot of free agents like Kaiser White, Justin Jones, Shaman Owusu, Linval Joseph. I guess what do you kind of expect for this defense? Like a drastic makeover, or maybe kind of stick out with some of the guys already have?
That's a good question. I mean, I think obviously the philosophy that we've seen from Tom Telesco is like draft and develop your own. And I would expect some of those guys to be re-signed. I think the contributions that Uchenna and Kaiser had this year were incredible. And for those of us who have seen this for the last few years, guys, it almost felt like there were, not that I'm not trying to slight anyone, but there were certain guys who just blossomed this past year. Those two, Mike Williams, obviously another one. So I would expect them to re-sign a few. I know nothing. I will say that as the inside person, I know nothing. But it wouldn't surprise me, I'll say that, if they re-signed a few and then obviously maybe low free agency, which is something they did last year. If you look at the offensive line, that was specifically a unit that they said they needed to get better at. And they essentially remade it with the exception of Brian Bulaga. But then you look at what happened after week 1 this past year. So I don't know. I think they'll retool it. I think they know that it wasn't good enough. And Tom Telesco and Staley and players have talked about that. And that was one thing, we had Chris Hayrey and I had Daniel Popper on our podcast, and he said, that's where it needs to be made. If you keep up the high level of offense, you bolster that defense, it's a playoff team.
It's funny because I'm taking her, I think, as guaranteed. So Justin Jones and Uchenna Nwosu will be re-signed.
There are no guarantees. I am putting that out there.
You know what's funny is that I feel like one guy that's really underrated even still. Man, I think Mike Williams just. I mean, Tom has talked about we develop, we do this, we do that, and then we pay him. If there's anybody that deserves to be paid, I think it's Mike Williams. I think it's almost 500 yards. And I think he scored 7 touchdowns in the fourth quarter. I feel like he's one of those guys. I feel like he's one of those guys. You kind of sacrifice Hunter Henry in a sense. You sacrifice Hunter Henry last year and said, you know what, making too much money. We have Mike, Corey Lindsley. Let's table this and let him go and get his money. And we'll look for tight end elsewhere. I feel like Mike is a guy that you cannot let leave just because of the familiarity. Your quarterback looks at him. You can't take that away from Justin Herbert.
So in talking with Chris Beatty, I'm glad you brought Mike Williams up because I had asked him, I just said, look, we've heard from Joe Lombardi, we've heard from Brandon Staley, we've heard from Mike, but like, you're the position coach, like you're the one who's worked with him. Like, where did this come from? And he said it was going back and watching film of Mike and then looking at that and realizing, implementing the elements of the Saints offense that Lombardi has brought over and realizing he could do so much more. And the one thing that he shared with me, and we had heard from Staley talk about, after that Raiders game, you could have seen Mike Williams after that game and Tom Telesco. Chris Beatty said he broke down. He said he was like a 12-year-old who struck out with bases loaded, just like broke down because of how much he did in that game. And you look at that final drive in regulation, all the work that he put in before the tying touchdown, actually, convert those fourth downs and he was the security blanket a lot of the year too. He was the guy that Herbert knew he could go to. So he just, for those of us, again, who have been around and seen Mike's career from 2017 to now, it was just so impressive what he did. And you're almost proud, in a sense, to have seen him do that.
2017, people he gets drafted.
Had a back injury.
Earlier, and I'm not trying to defend anybody, but during the offseason, during training camp, I had a video where I showed the receivers going through drills. Well, Mike kind of just hit one like that, and everybody's like, so this is the guy that everybody wants back. I'm like, dude, it's damn real. It's not like he's out here going up against the quarterback during the season when he really showed you who he was. But really, where he went from 2017 and now, he's really earned his paycheck. And I'm not trying to put you on the spot. I don't want you to say, oh yeah, they need to pay him. I'm just trying to show that Mike is really.
He's grown
from 2017 and now. Now he literally is one of the better receivers and makes Keenan and him one of the better duos. I know I ask Keenan every single year, are you guys a top 5 duo? He's like,
what do you think?
Yeah, exactly. But I definitely think that they make such a great duo because of they both have different skill sets and they both kind of feed off of each other.
Well, and I think, again, it goes back to that buy-in, and then it also goes back into the player just being receptive. And I think we saw that. We've heard Brandon Haley talk this whole season about collaboration and being collaborative with the players. And I think we saw that from Mike. It was Chris Beatty and the offensive staff sitting him down saying, hey, we want this for you. This is going to be your role. And Beatty said, we almost hit dead on all the numbers we kind of projected for him. So you have the coaches with the plan, you have the players buying in, and look at what happened.
Haley, you got Fernando really fired up. He always says it when it comes to Mike Williams. It's okay. It's okay. Yes, he's a good player. He comes clutch. But Haley, last thing before we let you go, I want you to plug your great podcast, Women in Media. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I host Makers for the Chargers. I just finished the second season. Third? I've lost track now. I think I'm not even going to do the math.
It's Friday.
I don't even know what day it is. It's like we just need to make it to Sunday through Sunday, get to Monday.
She was about to say
Thursday now. Anyway, yeah, I think I need another coffee. Playmakers focuses on women in sports, particularly usually around the game of football. It is just something, again, I'm very appreciative of the platform that the Chargers have given me. We just highlight female guests. And one of the things, and I always say this, I never want it to be just like chick talk. I want people of all genders to be able to listen and get something. But sometimes it's, game talk about the game that week. We'll have reporters on maybe talking about the opponent. Other times it's maybe deeper issues or things that are going on in the NFL and initiatives that they have. Like my final episode, I just did a bonus episode with kind of a behind the scenes look with Keenan, who's the NFL Senior Director of Event Operations, just talking to her about the Super Bowl and what goes into it. But prior to that, in Week 18, it was with Sam Rappaport, who works for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion in the NFL, and Jane Skinner-Goodell, who is Rodgers' wife. But together they have formed a podcast and TV show for Peacock called Earning It, which is about the forward progress of women in the NFL. So highlighting conversations like that, too. It's awesome. We have an amazing array of guests, and I haven't even, obviously, in 3 years, gotten on everyone I've even wanted to get, or 2 years. So I'm really excited about that, and it's a lot of fun. And I'll probably do some bonus episodes in March for Women's History Month, and then we're back when the season starts.
Yeah, no, and there's definitely a lot. We met one yesterday. Ron Rivera's right-hand woman. Her name was Natalia Durantes, and he's like she's gonna run the NFL. And I was gonna joke and be like, watch out, Roger. But then I was like, no, never mind. But she was honestly like she was a little shy, but she was very excited. Ron was very excited about speaking with her, put her on camera and everything with us. And he's like, she's the real deal. Like, he's like, I don't care if you're a man, woman, whatever. He's like, if you know the game, if you know what you're gonna do, then I want you with me. I want her right by my side. And I was impacted because Ron Rivera is one of the bigger names in the NFL where you're like, respect no matter what. You have respect for him and everything. And if he thinks that she's amazing, then there's something special that he sees, and I think that's totally awesome.
Well, we forget, too, that not every man that we see on TV or who does sports media played football at a professional level, as we point. So, it's like if men can talk about stuff that they didn't physically play, why do women sometimes get called out for that when they shouldn't?
I totally agree, but I'm going to call you out right now. I'm going to put you on the spot. Blaze of Fire. Who's winning Sunday? you thought I was going to make it like some weird.
I have to cover the game. So I'm going to pull a party line from Chargers quarterback number 10, Justin Herbert, and say the city of Los Angeles for hosting this great event.
Look at that.
What a response. Yeah. Good event for the
Smart
city.
guy.
I love that.
Yeah, no, definitely. That's a good one. But Hayley, thank you so much for jumping on with us. This has been, I told you, we're waiting for a special time to get you on. This is a special time. You got to talk. We talked everything. We talked about what you're going to be doing on Sunday or Thursday.
I have rehearsal on Wednesday.
So that's awesome that you're doing all
Guacamole.
that. Exactly. Can you plug a show or two that you're watching right now? Anything to get people excited about something?
What am I
I
watching?
just watched Gotham, by the way.
You did?
I don't know if you ever watched that.
I have not watched that. Ben McKenzie, though, he's on that, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I know him from the OC.
So the new
Back in
Batman
the day.
movie's coming out with Robert Pattinson.
Yes.
Somebody was telling me that it's going to be basically that's the closest thing to that Batman that we're going to see. So I knocked out all five. I was like, dude, don't tell me that at the end of the season. And I watched it. I binged it all December watching it. Great show.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be awesome for that new Batman movie. But yeah, what have you?
What did I watch? I just finished probably a couple of weeks ago or so, but on Hulu, Only Murders in the Building, which is like a murder mystery comedy with Steve Martin, Martin Short, and Selena Gomez. Very funny. I really enjoyed it. Very quick, easy to get through. I believe there's a season 2 that's coming because it was kind of left at a cliffhanger. But I don't know. I'm really excited. We talk about it's the off season, but it's not. That's the other thing because we're all here we are. We're so busy. But I'm excited for things to eventually kind of slow down and try to get into other shows. I'm waiting. Netflix had that Kristen Bell. It's like the woman. It's like a Rear Window kind of like the woman in the building across from the woman, whatever. It's another murder mystery show. And I think it's kind of supposed to be a parody. It's okay. But I'm waiting for Dead to Me to come back on Netflix with Christina Applegate. I don't know if you guys have seen that.
I have. Very good.
But yeah, I don't know. I guess Only Murders in the Building.
Well, thank you so much, Hayley, for jumping on with us. We appreciate it. Thank you. And everybody, you can find Hayley's work at Hayley Elwood on Twitter and on Instagram.
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Hayley.
Thanks, guys.